Chika was born into a poor family in a small Nigerian town called Agunze. From the day he opened his eyes, life showed him hardship instead of comfort. His father was a palm wine tapper who climbed tall trees every morning before dawn. His mother sold groundnuts by the roadside, sitting under the hot sun from morning until evening. They lived in a single room with walls made of mud and a roof that leaked when the rain fell heavily. Chika had two younger sisters, and together they shared one mat on the floor. There was no electricity in their home, only a small kerosene lamp that his mother lit at night. Food was never plenty. Most days, they ate garri with soup that had more water than ingredients. Sometimes, there was no soup at all. Chika learned early that life was not fair to everyone. While other children wore shoes and clean uniforms, he walked barefoot and wore clothes that had been patched many times. When Chika turned 6 years old, his mother took him to the only primary school in Agunze. She held his hand tightly as they walked on the dusty road. The school building was old and the paint was peeling off the walls. But to Chika, it looked like a palace because he had never been inside a school before. His mother paid the small fees with money she had been saving for months. She bought him one notebook and one pencil. That was all she could afford. On his first day, the other children laughed at him. His shirt was too big and torn at the shoulder. His shorts had faded from black to brown. He had no shoes, no bag, no ruler or eraser. The teacher noticed and asked him to sit at the back of the class. Chika felt shame burn his face like fire. But he did not cry. He held his notebook and pencil tightly and promised himself that he would learn everything the teacher taught. Poverty had marked him, but he would not let it defeat him. Every morning, Chika woke up at 5 o'clock. He fetched water from the stream before going to school. His stomach was always empty because there was rarely breakfast. His mother would give him 10 naira to buy akara or bread at break time, but even that was not always possible. Some days, Chika sat under the tree during break and watched other children eat rice and chicken from their lunch boxes. His stomach would rumble and twist with hunger. But he learned to ignore it. He learned to focus on what the teacher was saying instead of thinking about food. Hunger became his constant companion. Yet somehow, Chika's brain stayed sharp. He listened to every lesson. He wrote down every word the teacher wrote on the blackboard. When other children were playing, he was reading his notebook over and over again. The teacher, Mr. Matthew, began to notice this small boy who never played but always studied. Even with an empty stomach, Chika was always ready to answer questions in class. As Chika moved from primary 1 to primary 3, the mockery from other children grew worse. There was a boy named Emeka whose father owned a big shop in town. Emeka wore a new uniform every time and carried a bag filled with books and crayons. He would stand in front of Chika and laugh at his torn clothes. "See this poor rat," Emeka would say. "You smell like kerosene and garri. Why do you even come to school?" Other children would join in the laughter. They called him names. They refused to sit beside him. They said he was too dirty, too poor, too worthless. Chika's heart would break into pieces every time. But he never fought back. He never insulted them in return. He would simply walk away and sit under the mango tree with his notebook. His mother had taught him something important. She said, "My son, let them laugh. Let them mock you. But never let their words stop you from learning. Education is the only ladder that can lift us out of this poverty." Chika's mother, Mama Chika, was a woman of few words but great strength. Every morning, she woke up at 4 o'clock to fry akara and make pap. She would go to the market and sell them before the sun became too hot. Then she would sit under a tree and sell groundnuts until evening. Her hands were rough and scarred from years of hard work. Her wrapper was old and faded. She had only 2 wrappers which she washed and wore in rotation. Sometimes, Chika would see her counting coins after a long day and tears would roll down her cheeks. She was counting to see if there was enough money for school fees, for food, for kerosene. One day, Chika came home and saw his mother sitting in the dark. She had not lit the lamp because there was no kerosene. She had sold everything she made that day to pay for his school fees. "Mama, you did not eat," Chika said with tears in his eyes. His mother smiled weakly. "I ate, my son. I am fine. As long as you are in school, I am fine." When Chika was in primary 4, something happened that tested his character. He was sent by his teacher to buy chalk from a nearby shop. The shopkeeper gave him the chalk and his change. But as he was leaving, he saw a bundle of 20 naira notes on the counter. The shop was crowded and nobody was looking. Chika's heart began to beat very fast. 20 naira could buy food for 3 days. It could buy a new notebook. It could help his mother who was suffering so much. His hand moved slowly toward the money. But then he remembered his mother's words. She always said, "We are poor, but we are not thieves." Poverty is not a crime, but stealing is. Chika pulled his hand back. He walked out of the shop with only the chalk and the correct change. His stomach was empty and his heart was heavy, but his conscience was clean. That day, he learned that integrity is more valuable than money. He learned that a person's character is built in moments of temptation. When Chika finished primary 4, his father became very sick. He could no longer climb the palm trees. The family had no money coming in except what Mama Chika made from selling groundnuts. It was not enough. One evening, Mama Chika sat Chika down and told him something that broke his heart. "My son, I cannot afford your school fees next term. You will have to stop school and help me sell things in the market." Chika felt like the world had ended. School was everything to him. It was his only hope of escaping poverty. But he loved his mother and he could not watch her suffer alone. So he agreed. For 6 months, Chika did not go to school. He woke up early every morning and went to the market with his mother. He carried heavy loads. He called out to customers to buy groundnuts. His friends who used to mock him would pass by in their uniforms and laugh even more. "See, we told you that poor people cannot finish school," they would say. But Chika did not give up hope. Every night, he would borrow his old notebooks and read them by candlelight. One day, Mr. Matthew, Chika's former teacher, came to the market to buy vegetables. He saw Chika carrying a basin of oranges on his head. He was shocked. "Chika, what are you doing here? Why are you not in school?" he asked. Chika looked down at the ground in shame. He explained that his family could not afford the fees anymore. Mr. Matthew listened carefully. His heart was touched. He remembered how brilliant Chika was in class. He remembered how the boy studied even when his stomach was empty. That evening, Mr. Matthew went to visit Mama Chika. He told her that he would pay Chika's school fees from his own salary. Mama Chika fell to her knees and thanked him with tears streaming down her face. She could not believe that someone would be so kind to them. Mr. Matthew said, "This boy is special. He has a sharp mind and a good heart. I cannot let poverty destroy his future." From that day, Chika returned to school. He was now in primary 5, but he studied harder than ever before. He knew that Mr. Matthew had sacrificed his own money for him. He would not let that sacrifice be in vain. When Chika was in primary 6, something terrible happened. The final exams came and Chika was confident that he would pass well. He had studied day and night. He knew all the answers. But on the day of the exams, disaster struck. Chika developed a terrible fever. His head was hot and his vision was blurry. His mother had no money to take him to the hospital, so she gave him some local herbs and prayed for him. Chika still went to write the exams because he did not want to miss them. But he could barely see the questions. His hands were shaking. His head felt like it was on fire. When the results came out, Chika had failed mathematics and English. He did not score enough marks to proceed to secondary school. The day he received his results, Chika cried like he had never cried before. All his hard work, all Mr. Matthew's sacrifice, all his mother's suffering had led to this failure. He felt like he had disappointed everyone. He felt like poverty had finally won. Mr. Matthew found Chika sitting alone under the mango tree, crying. He sat beside him and put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Chika, listen to me," he said gently. "Failure is not the end of your story. It is just a chapter. What matters is what you do next." He told Chika that many great people had failed before they succeeded. He said that failure teaches us lessons that success never can. He encouraged Chika to repeat primary 6 and try again. Chika wiped his tears and made a decision. He would not give up. He would not let one failure destroy his dreams. He repeated primary 6 with a new determination. This time, he studied even harder. He asked questions when he did not understand. He practiced mathematics problems until his fingers hurt from writing. His mother encouraged him every day. She would say, "My son, you fell down, but you did not stay down. That is what makes you strong." When the exams came again, Chika was ready. He wrote each paper with confidence and clarity. And when the results came out, he had passed with excellent grades. Chika gained admission into a secondary school in the nearest town. It was 5 kilometers away from his village. Every morning, he woke up at 4:30 and trekked the distance on foot. He could not afford transport money. Rain or shine, Chika walked to school and walked back home. His feet developed blisters and his shoes, which were given to him by Mr. Matthew, wore out quickly. But he did not complain. In secondary school, the challenges were greater. The fees were higher. The books were more expensive. His classmates were from richer families and the mockery started all over again. But Chika had grown thicker skin. He no longer cared what people said about him. He focused only on his studies. He joined the school's debate club even though he had no money to buy the recommended books. He borrowed books from the library and read them late into the night. Slowly, his teachers began to notice him. They saw a boy who was hungry for knowledge, a boy who refused to let poverty define his future. When Chika was in SS2, something miraculous happened. The school principal called him to his office one morning. Chika was afraid that he had done something wrong. But when he entered the office, the principal was smiling. "Chika, I have been watching your performance," the principal said. "You are one of the most brilliant students in this school. I have recommended you for a scholarship program sponsored by a wealthy businessman who wants to help poor but brilliant students." Chika could not believe his ears. A scholarship meant that all his school fees would be paid. It meant that he would receive books and uniforms. It meant that his mother would no longer have to suffer to keep him in school. Tears filled his eyes as he thanked the principal. When he got home and told his mother, she fell down and began to thank God. She had prayed for this moment for years. That night, as Chika lay on his mat, he remembered all the struggles. The hunger, the mockery, the failure, the long treks to school. All of it had led to this moment. He had not given up, and now God was rewarding his perseverance. With the scholarship, Chika's life changed completely. He no longer had to worry about school fees. He could now focus entirely on his studies. In SS3, he took the WAEC and JAM exams and passed with outstanding results. He scored high enough to gain admission into the University of Nigeria to study civil engineering. His village celebrated him. The boy who was once mocked for being poor was now the pride of Agunze. Even Emeka, the boy who used to mock him, came to congratulate him with shame in his eyes. At the university, Chika faced new challenges. The academic work was harder. The competition was tougher. But he applied the same principles that had brought him this far: discipline, hard work, and faith. He studied while other students partied. He joined study groups and tutored students who were struggling. He graduated 4 years later with first-class honors. On his graduation day, Mama Chika wore a new wrapper. Mr. Matthew was there, beaming with pride. The poor boy from Agunze had become an engineer. After graduation, Chika got a good job with a construction company in Lagos. He was earning more money than his family had ever seen. The first thing he did was to build a proper house for his mother. Not a mud house, but a decent bungalow with a solid roof, electricity, and clean water. Mama Chika cried tears of joy. She could not believe that the little boy she had struggled to feed had now become her provider. But Chika did not stop there. He remembered Mr. Matthew, who had paid his school fees when no one else cared. He went back to Agunze and gave Mr. Matthew a generous gift of money. "Sir, you planted a seed in my life when I had nothing," Chika said. "This is my way of saying thank you." Chika also started a scholarship program in his village for poor but brilliant students. He knew how it felt to be intelligent but trapped by poverty. He wanted to give other children the same opportunity that he had received. Every year, he sponsored 5 students through secondary school. Today, Chika is a successful civil engineer. He has built roads, bridges, and schools across Nigeria. He is married with children and lives a comfortable life. But he has never forgotten where he came from. In his office, he keeps an old torn notebook from primary school. It reminds him of the days when he had nothing but dreams. He tells his children stories about his childhood so they will never take their privileges for granted. He teaches them that poverty is not a curse, and wealth is not an achievement if it is not used to help others. Chika's story spread across Agunze and beyond. Young people who were about to give up on their education because of poverty would hear his story and find hope. Parents who were struggling would encourage their children by saying, "Look at Chika. He had nothing, but he made something of himself through education and hard work." And so the boy who was born without a silver spoon created his own spoon through determination, discipline, and an unwavering belief that education could change his destiny. His story became a living testimony that no matter how poor you are, no matter how much people mock you, if you refuse to give up, your story can change. This is the story of Chika, and it is the story of many Nigerians who rise every day and fight against the odds, hoping for a better tomorrow.